make. I can't sing to save my life. If I were to sing right now, all the windows in Accra would break. Thankfully, what I can tell you is that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there whom God has gifted with the talent of singing, but they may not necessarily be able to write. So when they do write whilst they're singing, some of us take notice. My name is E.K. Benson Jr., and I'm your regular host for the Africa Zeitgeist Show, the only show in Ghana, the region, continent that operates from the assumption that the AU is already a global player. We're operating on a resilient continent, and that resilience comes through the creative arts. And that's one of the reasons why we felt it was very important to tell this story about Fuse ODG. Now, Fuse ODG, many of you already know him as a global superstar. Songs like Azonto, Antenna, and a lot of collaborations all over the continent. But did you know that he has co-authored a book on Africa 54? 54 countries. It was written by Fuse ODG and Sully Breaks, with each page illustrated by a child, each page representing a country. And he's done a song to accompany it as well. We'll have some of those songs on our social media for you to get an idea of what he's trying to do. Just recently, Burna Boy, who is also a global superstar from Nigeria, executive produced a Pan-African crime thriller called Three Cold Dishes. Very recently, it was just outdoored in London. So we are thinking to ourselves, if we can have someone in the creative arts like Burna Boy, he could have easily focused his life on music, deciding to executive produce a Pan-African film shot across 3 borders and looking at a theme very consistent with Agenda 2063 of human trafficking and peace and security on the continent. Then you have Fuse ODG co-authoring a book that is catching the children young, helping them be more aware that Africa is not a country, but it is a continent of 54 countries. Then we surely cannot go wrong in believing that the AU is already a global player. Fuse ODG is currently big news at the moment, and for the right reasons. We at Africa Zeitgeist should thoroughly support what he is doing, and we want to make sure that the kind of work that he's doing sets a precedent for what other creatives on the continent can do. We want to believe that there are lots of other creators out there who also have the passion to write, or in addition to what they're doing as musicians, to also begin changing the narrative of the continent. For me, I call it a 3P strategy. The 3P strategy of power, privilege, and platforms. So the question is, what is the soft power that you have? Soft power could be the voice, it could be your charisma, it could be the fact that you're known for a specific thing. What is the power that you have? And which privileged spaces do you have access to use that power you have? To be able to then carry the messaging and the narrative of the continent onto those platforms. The platforms are the weakest link at the moment because the platforms are largely owned by global corporates. And so sometimes we find ourselves that we are at the mercy of algorithms that are pushing the content that we produce up and down or otherwise. So we need to begin investing a lot more in the platforms to see what we can do. Already there are hundreds of thousands of creators out there who are great with the soft power, who are great with the privilege that they have and how they use that privilege. Now it's about bringing these two together into making sure that the platforms are well distributed, the content of these two things are well distributed. You see, at the end of the day, as someone said, a creative, Leo, Creative Brief on Africa author said, it's not that Africa isn't producing, it's that the world isn't seeing the right things, or rather, it's not being shown by Africans themselves. And sometimes it's not that people are producing. We all know that. We all know people who are doing one thing or the other. The question is about the visibility, which ties into the Africa Zeitgeist Show of skills, visibility, and positioning. You see, Africa has soft power at the moment. That soft power is in the Africa creative economy. It's in the fashion A lot of African clothes that we see all over the place. It's in the hair, braids, even non-Africans wearing braids, and so on. The fashion, there's the music, and then there's the cinema with Nollywood and so on and so forth. Now, all those things, that creative economy is valued at over $20 billion, and it's growing. And it's quietly rewriting how the um, continent participates in global markets. So, from Afrobeats topping global charts to African designers and Paris runways, storytelling has really advanced in a really fast way. But the platforms are the challenge, as I said earlier. We need to begin looking at how we build African owned platforms that aggregate, distribute, and archive creative work that ensures that we're not just economic value, but there's historical continuity of the things that we do. That's why Fuse ODG's work is doing very well, because Fuse ODG co-authoring this book is ties very much into what the Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission uh, has as one of its objectives, which is protecting cultural heritage. One of the objectives of the Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission is to promote the protection of indigenous knowledge and African oral and written folklore through audiovisual and cinematic means. Is that not what Fuse ODG is doing? So we keep asking ourselves that sometimes the practice goes ahead of the policy, which is good, but the policy should hurry up and catch up with the practice, because people are doing things. So it's time the African Union ensured that their member states are really ratifying protocols like these. The Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission, which I've spoken to before, and I'm going to quickly run down why it's important. Because the Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission has certain objectives, one of which is to promote research and archiving, to distribute African content. It's also to develop an African audiovisual and cinema fund so that Africans can easily tap into that fund and use part of that money to create audiovisual content. It also offers itself as a technical support and advisory service so that it can advise governments and ministries and whoever else on how they can craft policies around their creative arts. It's also looking at fostering economic growth and integration, creating jobs for youth, for women, how they can tap into the creative arts and the audiovisual economy. And finally, the protecting cultural heritage, ensuring that the Commission also promotes the protection of indigenous knowledge, and so on. So these are some of the things that the Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission has by way of objectives. And so you ask yourself, if these are great things that it has of objectives, why do we still have zero ratifications and zero signatures? The Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission is a reality. It is based in Kenya at the Cinema Film Commission. So I'm actually even wondering why Kenya itself is not really pushing this as a country to make sure that more African member states are signing. But we will do our best on Africa Zeitgeist Show to make sure that we continue to make the noise on the Africa Audiovisual Cinema Commission and the necessity of member states signing it. At the end of the day, as someone said, storytelling has become a kind of soft power. Storytelling is now infrastructure. Infrastructure, because once you tell the stories and we have the platforms, you have created new narratives around the economy. For me, it's about using the 3P strategy of power, privilege, and platforms. We want to hear from you. Try this 3P strategy. Assess for yourself. What privilege do you have? What power do you have? The soft power of a voice, of a dance, of being able to draw, being able to write. Do you have enough of that to be able to then go into spaces where you can, privileged spaces where you can showcase that? And once you do, are you then going to be able to showcase that on the platforms that you begin to create? Stop waiting for a producer on the platforms. You can create a platform as well and begin from there. It could be a website. Before you know it, the website becomes a search engine optimized website. It's being featured number one on Google, and you're featuring lots of content there. It's on Instagram, it's linked up to Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on other socials. And before you know it, you are taking the 3P strategy to meteoric heights. Congratulations. to Fuse ODG. Congratulations to Burna Boy. These are two African creators from Nigeria and Ghana, respectively, doing great things. And we know there are many, many out there who are doing wonderful work as well. We celebrate them and we say that the AU is here to stay, is going to continue to be the global player that we at Africa Zeitgeist should believe in. Thank you for always making time out of your busy schedules to follow us on Instagram at Africa Zeitgeist Show, on YouTube, Africa Zeitgeist Show, and on Facebook, Africa Zeitgeist Show. We hope to hear from you. You can always send us or tag us on X. I'm at EK Bensa on X. You can send a tweet to let us know what other stories or what ideas you have. And let us also know what you think about the 3P strategy and how we can use that to maximum effect to help take the AU to the heights of the global player that we claim it to be on this show. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Chief, for support on this show. Have yourselves a great day. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.